A sweet flashback shows Ava and Mitch looking happy. They sit closely at a wedding reception, bathed in red light. However, the present is much harsher. News reports show a massive explosion over Hobart. The U.S. military accidentally deployed an experimental weapon there. The blast killed 500,000 people in an instant. An animation explains the cause was catastrophic neural failure. Angry protesters crowd the streets in Washington, D.C. The UN and the Australian Prime Minister are furious. They demand the U.S. president be held accountable. Journalists are also blocked from entering the disaster zone. Mitch was visiting Hobart during the incident. Ava tried calling him, but he never answered. Now she looks out the window of a military airplane. She is traveling to Australia as a civilian volunteer. She joined the cleanup operation just to find Mitch. An elderly woman sits next to Ava. The lady holds a silver locket with a child's photo. She also hopes to find her loved ones alive. Ava steps from a white plane wearing a red shirt and dark cap. A loudspeaker orders the arriving volunteers to surrender their personal phones. Ava drops her device into a black plastic bin and enters a large hangar. At the busy registration desk, Ava asks to join the Southern Body Retrieval Unit. The seated officer explains no one is traveling south because the city is still burning. For now, Ava must work in other safe areas and wait. Ava starts crying and quietly admits her husband was in that zone. The officer offers brief condolences and assigns her to Unit 209. Ava mentions she is a physical therapist and eagerly offers medical help. The officer firmly states Ava's exemption is strictly for disaster victim identification. Ava must work with that specific unit or go home. Soon after, a military commander addresses the seated volunteers in the hangar. He officially confirms that the dark rumors are actually true. Some of the deceased people are mysteriously coming back to life. If civilians encounter one, they must alert the armed soldiers to handle it. Ava boards a bus and cries softly in her window seat. She remembers Mitch smiling in bed and desperately hopes he is fine. A man asks a soldier how many dead people have revived. The soldier ignores him and tells everyone to use their flares. The bus stops in a ruined town covered in thick smoke. The volunteers split into pairs to recover bodies from the area. Ava and another woman walk inside a dark abandoned house. Ava wears a white mask and searches with a flashlight. She checks the rooms and discovers several corpses in the garden. The women drag a filled body bag out to the yard. Her teammate photographs a victim's passport near the collection truck. The traumatized woman suddenly rips off her work gloves in horror. She quits the job so she can go hug her daughters. She walks away down the street while Ava rests on the grass. A young man runs out of a house and vomits on the lawn. A man named Clay follows him and calmly lights a cigarette. The sick volunteer quickly quits the job and walks away. Clay needs a new partner and glances over at Ava. They agree to team up and enter the next home. They discover a dead old man resting in an armchair. Two dead fish float inside a murky glass tank nearby. The rotting smell inside the dark house is extremely awful. Ava looks at Clay and asks why he lacks a mask. Clay simply jokes and asks if her mask is cherry flavored. The duo continues searching from house to house for bodies. Clay swings an axe to shatter a locked glass door. Inside one bedroom, they discover a very large dead woman. The heavy body is too massive for them to lift. They roll the huge corpse onto a floral bedsheet instead. Ava sits on the floor to catch her breath. She notices a framed wedding picture hanging on the wall. This happy photo triggers a warm memory of her own wedding. The volunteers eat lunch outside from paper plates. A woman thinks the military should study the infected instead of killing them. Ava listens quietly under her dark cap. Later, an old woman cries by a silver pickup truck. She reaches for a covered body and begs her son to wake up. Two armed soldiers quickly pull her away. Next, Ava and Clay step through a broken store door. Ava walks over to a dark wooden baby crib. She gently touches the top rail. This brings back a painful memory. She remembers holding a negative pregnancy test with a tearful face. Her husband Mitch steps in and kisses her forehead. Suddenly, loud screaming interrupts Ava's thoughts. She looks quickly out the window. A panicked woman waves a bright pink flare on the sidewalk. Thick pink smoke fills the air. The woman points desperately at a nearby building. Ava and Clay use flashlights to search a dark garage. They find a sleek red car parked in the shadows. Ava spots some dark blood puddles on the concrete floor. She carefully follows the trail and quietly whispers to Clay. A dirty zombie hides silently behind some heavy metal shelves. One of its eyes bleeds heavily down its ruined face. The quiet creature just stares right back at curious Ava. Clay quickly rushes outside and opens the large garage door. He safely ignites a pink flare to signal the military. Ava steps out into the sunlight and leaves the monster. Later, religious leaders gather to honor the many dead victims. A woman quietly reads prayers over a silver cross. A Buddhist monk softly rings a small decorated metal bell. Dump trucks push heavy dirt into a massive trench of bodies. Ava and Clay sit on a hill near the burial. Ava feels deeply distressed and stands up to walk away. She shields her eyes and looks out toward toward the coast. She remembers a sunny beach vacation with her husband Mitch. He playfully runs into the ocean waves at a beautiful sunset. Night falls and helicopters patrol the dark town with bright searchlights. Ava sits on her bed and shines a lantern on a map. She uses a red marker to trace a route to the southern Ensa resort. She writes down the distance of 200 miles on the paper. A tear falls down her cheek as she sadly stares at the map. Seeing the long distance, Ava whispers a curse word in clear frustration. She puts on a heavy backpack and grabs a small hand flashlight. Ava slowly creeps down a dark stairwell and sneaks through the empty hallways. She spots a dark, empty kitchen and quietly slips inside. Ava shines her light around the metal counters and finds a back exit. She opens the heavy door and steps out near a glowing red light. Suddenly, a female officer blocks her path and stops her from leaving. The officer angrily complains about letting Americans join the rescue group. Ava has to turn around and quietly walk back inside the building. Later, Ava walks into a noisy and very crowded mess hall. The volunteers are drinking, dancing, and getting tattoos to forget the horror. Clay sits at a round table and pours liquor into a small glass. He casually hands the small drink over to a very worried Ava. She takes a sip and tells him about her missing husband. Ava explains that the infected man earlier did not look completely gone. She honestly thinks the zombie just looked very lost and terrified. Clay shakes his head and clearly disagrees with her strange observation. Ava feels very awkward and simply stares at the loud partying crowd. In the next scene, Ava and Clay carefully search a dark house. They sweep their flashlights across a messy room filled with family photos. A naked infected man suddenly jumps out from a dark hallway. Ava's right eye snaps wide open in a sudden panic. She quickly realizes it was only a terrible, scary nightmare. She sits up in her bed as daylight shines through the window curtains. Ava slowly walks over to the window and sadly stares outside. She silently watches a helicopter fly near thick smoke rising over the ruined city. Ava and Clay slowly walk into a large warehouse. Clay spots some motorcycles and approaches a red bike. He sits on the seat and wants to take a spin. Ava explores the dark building and pulls back a plastic sheet. She finds a room filled with lifeless bodies on couches. They died after a wild party among scattered bottles. Clay snorts some white powder from a glass table. He mentions that he has ridden dirt bikes since childhood. Ava spreads a paper map across a blue pool table. She traces a route and asks Clay to drive south. Clay teases her about the crazy idea, but agrees to help. He walks away to search the area for some helmets. Ava shines her flashlight directly toward a dirty mirror. A zombie with bright pink hair stands behind the glass. The monster growls and repeatedly clenches her rotting teeth. Ava steps closer to the glass and simply stares. Clay rushes back into the room holding two black helmets. He spots the threat and yells at Ava to back away. The two survivors quickly run out of the warehouse. They quietly push the red motorcycle past a metal gate. They jog down an empty dirt road with the bike. Once they are far enough, they climb onto the motorcycle. Clay accelerates down the paved road at a very high speed. They swerve smoothly around the abandoned cars on the highway. The duo spots a military convoy approaching on the highway. They quickly hide their motorcycle behind a green pickup truck. Passing soldiers suddenly shoot a wandering zombie in the head. Ava stares in complete shock at the fallen infected body. She imagines her husband lying dead in that exact spot. After the soldiers leave, the duo continues traveling down the road. The sky turns dark red as they approach ground zero. Thick smoke and ruined cars completely cover the desolate landscape. Eventually, they stop to find supplies in a smoked-out town. The dense ash in the air makes them cough uncontrollably. Clay grabs two oxygen masks from an abandoned ambulance nearby. Several infected zombies begin to emerge from the thick smoke. They quickly put on the masks and speed away safely. The two survivors enter a dark restaurant and ignore a decaying body. They eagerly drink cold water directly from the kitchen tap. Clay soon rests completely shirtless inside the dusty dining room. Ava stands behind him to gently massage his sore back. She mentions her 6 years of experience as a physiotherapist. Her husband traveled to Tasmania for a renewable energy meeting. Clay mentions his own small building business back in Melbourne. Ava spots a dark tattoo and softly asks about his past. Clay completely ignores her personal question and quickly looks away. Suddenly, a groaning zombie stumbles right into the dining room. Clay quickly lifts a heavy wooden chair to defend himself. A loud gunshot suddenly blasts through the quiet dining room. A soldier steps through the doorway with his rifle raised. He warns that the infected become highly agitated over time. The soldier finally stabs the twitching creature with a knife. Riley lowers his weapon and asks why they are in a restricted area. Ava steps forward and tells the curious soldier her full story. Riley wants an official statement from both of them. He takes Clay first and locks Ava inside a small back room. Ava sits on the dirty floor and begins to cry. She wipes her eyes and apologizes to her husband for failing him. She suddenly remembers a quiet and serious moment from their past. In her memory, she is resting inside a dark bathtub. Mitch walks into the bathroom and loosens his work tie. He looks down at her seriously and asks to talk. Hours later, Riley opens the door and explains that Clay ran away. He mentions that Clay tricked him by asking to pee. He understands her need for closure and offers a ride south. Ava must promise not to escape, so so she readily agrees. Riley mentions they must grab a few things before leaving. They walk outside to his truck, and Riley holds the heavy door open. Ava looks closely at his hand gripping the metal door frame. She clearly notices a silver wedding ring on his finger. The duo leaves the station in Riley's heavy military truck. By nighttime, they reach a dark property in the woods. A wooden sign reads, "Bluebird House, Bed and Breakfast." Riley parks the vehicle and offers to cook a meal. Ava nervously reminds him that they need to leave quickly. She thought they were just picking up some simple supplies. Riley sighs and admits he needs a short rest first. Inside the dark kitchen, a single glass lantern glows brightly. They sit across from each other at a wooden table. Ava looks completely blank and refuses to eat her food. Riley calmly shares that his father was an army man. A framed photo nearby shows Riley with a blonde woman. Riley reveals that the smiling woman is his wife Katie. He explains quietly that she was heavily pregnant back then. Riley was away when the terrible incident suddenly started. He talked his way onto a helicopter to return quickly. Sadly, he found Katie dead sitting at this exact table. Ava looks deeply unsettled by his incredibly tragic story. She softly asks if his dead wife ever came back. Riley stays completely silent and just lights a cigarette. The bright flame illuminates his face in the dark shadows. He takes a slow drag and looks away from her. Feeling anxious, Ava firmly asks when they are actually leaving. Riley exhales thick smoke and promises they will go soon. But first, he looks directly at Ava and asks for a favor. Ava puts on a blue dress and sprays perfume on her neck. She holds a wedding ring but refuses to wear it. She grabs some scissors and hides them beneath a bed pillow. Riley enters the shadowy room wearing a casual plaid shirt. He places an earbud in her ear for a slow dance. Riley pulls her into a tight embrace in the dark bedroom. Ava closes her eyes and imagines dancing with her own husband. Riley cries against her shoulder and apologizes to his dead wife. He drops to his knees to talk to the baby. This action reminds Ava of Mitch during their own wedding. Suddenly, Riley looks up and notices her bare ring finger. Ava quickly steps back and tells him the dance is finished. Riley grows furious and shouts that she ruined the moment. He aggressively steps forward and demands she put the ring on. Ava backs away in pure panic to avoid his grasp. She grabs a heavy lamp and strikes him across the face. Riley stumbles backwards, so Ava quickly runs out the door. Ava runs into a dark room and locks the deadbolt. She turns around and freezes in complete horror. Katie's decaying pregnant body rests on a bed. Lit candles and fresh flowers surround the pale corpse. Riley speaks loudly through the locked wooden door. He claims the dead returned to finish their business. He also shouts that their unborn baby is alive. He firmly tells Ava that he felt the baby kick. Riley becomes enraged and violently pounds against the door. Blood leaks from a fresh cut on his forehead. Ava stares at photographs on the wall and spots a window. She climbs out onto the sloping roof to escape. She climbs down a wooden post into the dark yard. She peeks through a window and sees the truck keys. Ava silently opens a door and steps inside. Suddenly, Riley walks down the stairs with a flashlight. Ava turns around and flees the house empty-handed. She sprints across the yard to an open garage. She hides deep inside the dark shadows. Soon, Riley approaches the building to look for her. Ava hides in the dark garage while Riley searches with a bright flashlight. The light reveals several chained zombies, making Ava cover her mouth in horror. She spots a large chalkboard covered in detailed notes about each creature. This proves Riley has been closely studying the captive undead. Riley refuses to step any deeper into the shadowy room. He calls out and promises to take Ava to her husband. Ava pulls her wedding ring off a small silver necklace. She steps into the light and pretends to be Katie. Ava speaks softly and asks to finish their romantic dance. A wary Riley slowly walks backwards out of the garage. As they reach the yard, Ava spots a bundle of keys. The keys dangle from a metal clip on his belt. She steps closer to him and leans in for a hug. Riley aggressively grabs her face and coldly calls her Ava. He tells her that she already ruined the special moment. Ava suddenly reveals a screwdriver she grabbed from the garage. She quickly drives the sharp tool deep into his neck. Blood spurts out as Riley collapses to the cold dirt. Ava quickly grabs the keys from his belt. She runs through the dark trees and climbs into the dusty truck. Ava turns on the headlights. The bright beams hit the house so Katie becomes visible. The dead woman slowly rubs her pregnant belly. Ava stares with wide eyes. She panics and drives away fast. During the drive, Ava thinks about the past. She remembers the sad day Mitch left. She sits on a bedroom floor and cries. Mitch silently packs his travel bag. Ava begs to go to the airport, but Mitch says no. Their marriage feels completely broken. Mitch walks out the door. Morning light fills the truck. Ava wakes up on the steering wheel. She looks exhausted. She places her wedding ring back on her finger. She steps out of the vehicle. A massive crash blocks the entire road. Overturned cars sit everywhere. Ava takes a hat and an axe from the scattered luggage. She continues walking down the empty highway. Later, A bloody zombie in a red shirt spots her. The creature grunts loudly. Ava turns around in fear and sprints down the asphalt. Suddenly, she trips over a dead body. Her heavy axe slides across the road. Ava scrambles away and spots an overturned bus. She climbs inside to a shattered window. The fierce zombie quickly follows her. The creature shoves its body through the glass. Ava crawls backwards over the bus seats. The zombie aggressively grabs her legs. She grabs a heavy red fire extinguisher. She violently smashes it into the zombie's ruined face. She hits him several times until he stops moving. Ava leans back and screams in pure frustration. She finally retrieves her axe. She walks alone down the quiet road. In the evening, Ava finds an RV and peeks inside. She discovers a dead family. She drags the bodies outside and settles in the vehicle to rest. By lantern light, she takes care of her blistered feet. Then she looks at her map. She notices she still has 6 miles left. In the middle of the night, one body becomes a zombie. A sudden noise wakes Ava up. She steps outside with her axe ready to attack. She finds the zombie digging a hole with a shovel. The creature turns and looks at Ava. It almost looks human, so she decides to help it. Once the family is buried, Ava holds the zombie's driver's license. She looks at the ID and thinks about Mitch again. She gains hope that he may be okay. The zombie kneels next to the hole as a silent request. Ava raises her axe high. She kills the zombie and buries it with its family. Finally, she places a family picture on top of the dirt grave. Ava eventually arrives at a large oceanfront resort at sunrise. She discovers many dead bodies and a trapped female zombie. Ava grips her axe and searches the quiet hotel hallways. She enters a dark room and finds Mitch lying dead beside the bed. Ava touches his cold hand and notices his ring is missing. Ava finds a female stranger's conference badge on the table. She slowly slides open the bathroom door and looks inside. Mitch's silver wedding ring rests alone on the sink counter. Ava instantly realizes that her husband was having an affair. She cries heavily and whispers that the woman was pretty. She sits down and desperately begs Mitch to wake up. A man named Clay quietly steps into the hotel room. They sit on rocky cliffs by the ocean. The sky above them is gray and cloudy. They pass a liquor bottle back and forth. Ava stares out at the water while she speaks. She says her marriage suffered because she could not get pregnant. She wanted to start treatment for a baby. Mitch told her they just needed to wait. They started fighting often and grew apart. Ava confesses she eventually had an affair. She told Mitch about it right before his trip. She came here hoping to fix their broken relationship. Clay takes a drink and shares his own painful problems. His wife and daughter want nothing to do with him. He joined the project to prove he is selfless. His wife just insulted him when he shared the news. Later that night, they decide to have some fun. They hang out at the resort's indoor pool. Small candles glow brightly all around the dark room. They drink heavily, smoke cigarettes, and swim in the water. Clay dances around while pouring them more drinks. Suddenly, a zombie attacks Ava from the dark shadows. Ava quickly grabs a glass bottle to defend herself. She screams and strikes the zombie repeatedly on the head. Blood splatters onto her face as she kills it. The next morning, Ava stares at a framed painting of a burning Viking boat. The image gives her an idea. She slowly slides off her silver wedding ring and leaves it behind. Later, Ava and Clay drag Mitch's wrapped body toward the beach. Clay suddenly stops and throws up on the white sheet. He groans from a terrible hangover. They place the body inside a small metal boat. The boat is set on fire and drifts out into the ocean. Soon after, the duo drives away down a dirt road. They pass a wooden sign for the Bluebird house. Up ahead, they spot Katie standing completely still. She wears a pale green dress covered in dark blood. Her pregnant belly is now flat. Katie turns around and silently walks away. Suddenly, Ava hears a faint cry nearby. She sprints across a field toward a ruined stone structure. Inside the crumbled walls, a newborn baby lies crying on a rock. Clay quickly steps up and wraps his jacket around the infant. Ava carefully lifts the baby and holds him close to her chest. Thanks for watching.